All right, for this final video, we are going to get into the weeds in terms of looking at these different low flowing confidence trends. We'll also look at some unique events and how you can bring the temperature trends as well as electric current trends together. So let's start by looking at these four locations. So remember how we discussed that the name of the game is to filter by flowing confidence. What you want to do is you want to bring the locations with the low flowing confidence rating up to the top. Since the well is down here, don't worry about these locations. It's normal for there to be no flow at a well that's down. These are the money makers. So let's see what's going on here. Okay, so this is a typical trend of a location that is on either timer or pump off controller. So normally these locations will have a very low flowing confidence rating. The reason is because, notice here, we've got periods in time where flow temp and ambient track each other. Right here, there's just a little bit of separation up at the top there, just a little bit of separation. So that there is either a well with a very low amount of volume that's being produced, or it's not producing fluid at all. I mean, maybe in this point where there's separation, but when it's tracking like this, my sense is it may not be producing any fluid. Another thing, sharp up-down painting pattern like that, intermittent production. Also this, when we see the sharp up spikes, we could be looking at pump off. So let's bring all of these together. Okay, so even though in this period of time that we looked at, the well is on for certain hours, it's on for 2 hours at a time, so it goes down at 6, comes back on at 9, so 3 hours on, 3 hours off. So even though it's running during this time, we don't see any fluid. Here, there's better luck. We see the sharp upticks in flow temperature that mirror the upticks in electric current. So long story short, with these locations that are on timer and have, produce very little fluid, it's going to be normal for them to have a low flowing confidence rating. So this may be the story of this well. So we definitely suggest looking at the graph regularly to make sure there aren't periods of time like this where it's producing little to no fluid, but it may always have a pretty low flowing confidence rating. Okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, with this location, this is very interesting. So I don't see anything too out of the ordinary with electric current. What I mean by out of the ordinary is look how this is a fairly consistent pattern, but it looks like the pump is working harder here. Let's see how that's reflected in temperature. Interestingly, we've got periods of time where it doesn't look like there's any fluid being produced, especially right here. Here as well. I'd be curious as to how much this location is producing at all. So the question is this normal or not? If it is, it may be normal for this well to have a low flowing confidence rating. So we do suggest a site visit to, perhaps put the well on test to see if this is normal. And remember the trends here. When it's tracking ambient, indicates there's little to no fluid being produced. When it's mirroring ambient like that, it's a lower flow well, just as it does right there. Let's have a look at the next one. Okay, interesting. Okay, so there's a different pattern here. It looks like the pump is working pretty hard. And then here is interesting. Let's see what temperature is doing in relation to it. The reason I'm curious about this is because when we see a drop, so this is normally around, well above, well, it doesn't trend at 120, where this is around, it's below 120 and trending. Sometimes when we see a drop in electric current like that, kind of like an L, comes in a lower voltage, it could mean the pump is, like the pump speed has been changed. It could mean that there's slip belts, parted rods. So let's see what temperature is doing. So remember these trends. This isn't a high flowing well because it's not a straight pattern. It still mirrors ambient somewhat, but there's enough separation and it's independent enough. So my guess is it's a medium to higher producing well. But look at what happens here. When the well is restarted, we see temperature drop sharply. So this is a scenario where we definitely recommend someone check out what's going on at the well. Notice how flowing confidence is responding. Is there anything in pressure? A bit of a drop in pressure here. Tubing, drop in tubing. Interesting. Yeah, so this is definitely a location that you'd want to check out. Notice how consistent the electric current pattern is. Nothing really to notice here. If we saw the pump working a lot harder, or if we saw it drop in half and then trend at about the middle of the graph, that would indicate something pretty significant, but we're not seeing that. So let's see what temperature is doing. Okay, classic pattern. It's tracking ambient quite closely. It's a lower flowing well. Also, we see the sharp up-down pattern. It's producing intermittently. Okay, so that covers these 4 locations. We would suggest the timer well, don't worry about that. It's going to have a lower flowing confidence rating, but arguably these ones may require site visits. Let's look back at the agenda here. We're going to check out some unique events, and this focuses on how electric current and flow temperature give us a full picture. So we're going to go here. Okay, so first I'm going to look at the high electric current. Okay. Red flag. We see electric current trending around 100, between 100 and 110. There's a step up here. In and of itself, it's tough to tell that this is an issue because it could indicate a change in pump speed. But look at this. Flow temperature and ambient temperature. We see a sharp up spike in flow temp and then a drop where it's trending with ambient. Even though the well is physically running, there's no fluid being produced. So back to our handy guide. This is a higher producing well. It's a fairly straight line. There's lots of separation. But once electric current changes, we see flow temperature track with ambient. There's no fluid being produced here. Therefore, flowing confidence has dropped because it's responded to the change in temperature. So this could be a few different things. It could be parted rods, could be gas locking, could be a hole in the tubing. Let's check out the next one. So we're going to go to a lower electric current. Aha, this is classic. Electric current, we see a drop, and once the well comes back on, we see it drop almost in half. This is a classic pattern of slip belts or parted rods, hole in the tubing or gas locking. What we'll see is, with temperature, it's a higher producing well, there's lots of separation, perhaps producing somewhat intermittently, but let's go to electric current. When it drops, we see flow temp drop here. It's tracking with ambient. There's no fluid being produced here. This is very likely slip belts. Okay, now a tougher example. Let's look at where there is no change in electric current. Notice how electric current is very consistent. So let's see what temperature is doing. This is a lower producing well. It tracks with ambient at times, but there still is some separation right here where it drops even below ambient, affecting flowing confidence. This could be one of the same scenarios, hole in the tubing, gas blocking. So that is why it is so important to filter by flowing confidence. When you've got a large number of wells, you would click here, bring all the locations up to the top, and quickly check out which of the locations might be in a critical condition. Let's look at a couple more examples. We'll look at intermittent production, which you already know, but let's look at it one more time. Okay, easy. So electric current is consistent, motoring right along. Let's see what temperature is doing. Up, down painting pattern. This is classic. Also, tracking with ambient, periods of reduced or no flow. So that captures the majority of the agenda here. Let me see if I can find anything else that I'd like to show you. I think that captures just about everything. Let's just see what's going on here. Let's go to a month. This doesn't take a long time to load. Interesting. Okay, biggest takeaway, filter by flowing confidence and check out the money makers here. And as usual, give us a call if we can offer support.